Imagine it's 6 a.m. in the morning. The sun is rising and you're walking along the waterfront at Darling Harbour in Sydney, Australia. You're talking with fitness industry colleagues from across the country and from across the globe. You're exchanging experience, ideas and stories with some friends that you already know and some that you have just met for the first time. That feeling of excitement, of friendship and activity is exactly what our meetup events are all about. And you're invited to join us for the FBP Family Meetup that is happening on Friday, April the 12th at Filex 2019. For full details, make sure you listen in after the main interview. You're listening to episode 226 of the Fitness Business Podcast. We'd like to thank this month's premier podcast partner. Tribe Team Training are the world-class leaders in small group training. Earn unprecedented profit, gain guaranteed results for your members, and ensure the very best small group training for your coaches. To find out how you too can run a popular and profitable small group training department, go to tribeteamtraining.com or click on the link in today's show notes. Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to this week's show. Today I'm joined by Julie Creffield, founder of the plus size movement Too Fat to Run. For over 25 years, Julie worked with organisations such as the London 2012 Olympics to bring communities together. And it was when she found herself alone as a single mum that she decided to put her community building skills to work for herself, turning her blog into a six-figure business. During today's interview, we discuss exactly why it was that Julie started the Too Fat to Run blog and movement, how she was able to turn her blog into a six-figure business. We chat about the role of customer feedback and testing in business development. Plus, Julie shares with us exactly how she tests new service and product launches and why new ideas don't always work. We're about to transition into this week's show, but first, a huge thank you to our podcast partner, Tribe Team Training. Tribe Team Training spends every minute of every day specialising and developing the very best team training programs available for your club, coaches and members. To find out more, go to tribeteamtraining.com or click on the link in today's show notes. Enjoy this week's show with my special guest, Julie Creffield. Julie, a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us on the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm so grateful for you doing this at 10 p.m. at night because you're in the UK, I'm in Australia, and you have very graciously stayed up late to do this interview with us. So we're very, very grateful for your time. Now, you, as I mentioned, are the creator of Too Fat to Run website, The Fat Girl's Guide to Running. You're a multi-marathon runner yourself. You're a TEDx speaker, and now you coach others via online programs. So to start off with today, I'd love you to wind back the clock just a little bit and tell us where your fitness journey began.
Sure. So I always say I wasn't very active as a child, but that's a complete and utter lie because I was really active as a child. And then when I went to school, to secondary school, I just realised I wasn't very good at any sport. So I stopped being picked for teams. I lost my confidence. I didn't really know what the rules were. And I just found it safer just to not participate. So I completely removed myself from the fitness world and my enjoyment of sport and found myself being an adult that just didn't move. You know, in my early 20s, I just did no formal exercise at all. And I grew up in East London and I come from a really working class family, and people enjoyed watching sport on the TV, but they just didn't play it. And I just didn't know how to get back into it other than going to the gym, which I found really awkward and uncomfortable. I'd put on a huge amount of weight in my late teens and early 20s. And I just felt embarrassed. I felt embarrassed that I'd let myself get so unfit. And it was less to do with how I looked, but more to do with how I felt. I didn't feel very healthy and I didn't feel very happy in the body that I'd found myself in. What happened was in East London, we were awarded the London 2012 Olympics, and I live literally 2-minute walk from where the stadium was built. And I was working as a volunteer manager at the time, and we had all these different sports initiatives coming up, and it was my job to tell people about them. And I felt like a real fraud, because here I was saying, you know, the games is going to change everything, we're all going to get healthy, and I just wasn't the picture of health. So I just started getting involved in little kind of community things that were going on. There was a community fun run that happened, and I took part, and oh, it was horrendous. I was so unfit, and it hurt, and I came last, and it was just embarrassing. I can remember sitting in my car just crying, going, oh my God, how can I be this unfit? So I kind of said, I'm going to run the marathon by the time it turns 2012. And I think this was about 2004 or something like that. So I knew I had a little while to go to get ready for it. But I used 2012 as a marker, really, as a kind of goal to get back into health and to use all of these new facilities that were popping up around near where I lived as motivation to get active. But it took me a lot, because I couldn't see any role models. I couldn't see anybody that looked like me. So I felt incredibly lonely, and I felt embarrassed and ashamed. I used to run in the dark. Or along the canals where it was really quite dangerous, because I just didn't have the courage to turn up at a traditional running club or to get involved in my local gym. I just felt like it wasn't for me, like I didn't fit into those, you know, those lovely marketing images that a lot of gyms use.
That's a really interesting point, Julie, that I'd love to just touch on before we move on with the conversation, because when you are at that stage, and you were in that mindset, what would it have taken for you, do you think, to have the confidence to walk into the gym? Or what would have been the catalyst for you to have felt comfortable to go and train in a gym at that point?
I think maybe if I had a circle of friends that would do it with me, I think that probably would have helped. You wouldn't feel so alone. But, you know, I did dabble in my local gym. I went to different things, but I often had really awkward, uncomfortable experiences there where I just felt, I don't really think you want me to be here. And that continues to happen now. You know, I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I can remember training for a marathon, and I just went missing from my gym for a little while. And I came back, and the lady at reception said, well, you know, you haven't been here for 67 days. And I was like, I've been off training for a marathon, leave me alone. And sometimes these little experiences that happen just knock your confidence, and you think, I don't want to go back there anymore. It doesn't feel like that is a safe space for me.
Since going through this process and since your first entry into fitness and going for that marathon have now made that not only your life but your business. So tell us about where things are at today, and then we'll dive into the creating a tribe and really having a look at the business that you've created.
Sure. So when I started my blog, it's almost 10 years ago, I didn't think it would become a business. It didn't even enter my mind. It was literally just an outlet for me to write about some of the funny stuff that happened to me. I came last in a race. I was really embarrassed. And I thought, you know, this is quite funny as well as being embarrassing. It's quite funny. Maybe I should write about it. Maybe other people would enjoy it. Maybe it'd motivate me to run more often. And so for the first 2 years, I just wrote really organically. I wrote about the things that kind of inspired me. And then I got made redundant from my job, and I had a baby, and something shifted. I stopped I guess I stopped writing for me, and I started writing for other people, because I realized kind of on a bit of a political level, really, that it was quite unfair that there was no representation in running magazines or in marketing, that still no one really looked like me. Even after the Olympics had come and gone, nothing really had changed for people that didn't fit that demographic of being in the kind of, you know, a gym bunny. So I started writing about other women's experiences, and I started giving advice, and it became a little bit more kind of provocative. And I was surprised at how many people started reading it. But even then, it wasn't supposed to be a business. I just enjoyed it, and I just kind of wanted to share my story. So it's, over the last few years, it has really, really grown. And I've experimented with all different types of ways of monetizing it. And I've had some incredible opportunities to partner with brands and I got some funding from our government to test out some of our programs on the ground. And it's just been a roller coaster, really. And I still have to pinch myself. I still have to say, wow, it was just you creating this little blog. And now I've got, followers and clients all over the world that, they absolutely say that the Too Fat to Run movement is the thing that keeps them moving every week.
That's incredible, Julie. Something you should be just so proud of what you've created. And really this dives into the heart of what I wanted to get into today. You've got the Too Fat to Run website, as I mentioned earlier. You've got coaching, you've got retreats, you've got a mastermind. You mentioned before that wasn't all part of the plan from the beginning. You were just writing your blog. So talk to us about how the business looks like. And I would love to know, if you don't mind sharing, if there's been any kind of really major hiccups or challenges along the way and how you dealt with them when they came about.
So I think the thing to say is, because I didn't come from a sporting background, I didn't know what the rules were. So I wasn't copying a template. I didn't know what was possible. I didn't really know other fitness bloggers. I wasn't following somebody else's pathway. And, my background had been working with young people in the arts. It had been in community development. And although I worked on the games, I was working as an outsider because I didn't know the sport part of it. I was just there for the kind of community engagement stuff. And because I had a young baby, I think that really helped me, because I couldn't become a personal trainer, A, because I didn't have the qualifications, and B, I didn't have the time. I couldn't afford to do one-to-one stuff. So everything I had to do had to be about scale, and it had to be online, because I would have women email me from Australia saying, oh, I love your stuff. Like, how can I get involved? And I'd think, well, there's a business opportunity there. I need to have something that people can buy. And the very first thing that I sold was an ebook. I wrote a very, very simple ebook about how to train for your first 10K. And I didn't know anything about the publishing world. I literally just wrote it really, really quickly and got it up onto Amazon. And I can remember making £300 the first weekend that it went live. And I was like, wow, that's the first bit of money that I've made from this business. And, the ebook was $1.99. So I knew that 150 women now had a copy of my ebook in their hands. And that felt great, because it showed that there was a market for what I was doing. And I got a lot of bad advice from business kind of development agencies that would say, oh, you're never going to make money as a blogger. This is very gimmicky. It's too niche. There's not a market for it. And then I was thinking, well, the world is full of overweight women. So there is clearly a market. It's about kind of positioning my brand and listening to what my clients and followers wanted, and I think I've done a lot of testing of the market, and, I will launch something and I will ask for feedback and I will pilot stuff and do it really cheap just to kind of get it right. But it's definitely looking at creative ways of getting the expertise that's in your head to the people that need it, and working out what is it that people want. Because let's face it, running is free. It's a free activity. Anybody could go out and do it. They can download a free app off their phones and they could just go off and do it. But the thing is, people don't. And understanding the reasons that people don't is what's helped me to build my business. Women don't run because they find it hard to motivate themselves. They're embarrassed to be seen outside. They often don't know how to get started, and they don't know how to keep motivated. They don't know about different types of training and different ways of kind of progressing. But ultimately, they feel alone. They feel like they're the only person who feels this way. And many of my programs are not that intricate. They are just a safe space for women to communicate with each other, to talk about their progress. So, I run a marathon training group, but I don't do a lot of coaching in there. It literally is a place for us to talk about where we're at in our journey and, what we're working on at the moment. So I think it's partly just not following any rules and just saying, look, we live in this global world now where technology is there and it's available to us. And, I don't have any members of staff. I've had, various freelancers do bits and bobs for me, but I run this business out of the corner of my front room, and it's a very kind of lean operation. But in saying that, I've had enormous support from my customers. My customers will step up in the groups and they'll take control over a certain aspect. They'll become editors on the blog. They'll do guest blog posts. I've trained a number of my coaches up, or a number of my ladies to become coaches. So they're, qualified run instructors, and then they will go out into their communities and run programs on my behalf. And I wouldn't have been able to get the growth that I have in my business without that kind of support. So often I get a little bit embarrassed when people go, oh, you should be really proud of what you've done, like I've done it purely by myself. I haven't. I've got this core group of women who have supported me through thick and thin, and literally bought every program that I brought out into the market, because they know in the early days it was the difference between me paying my mortgage or not.
I love hearing this story, Julie, because there's so many things that I think we can learn from the way that you've actually built your business. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, because you clearly have a very thorough understanding of your customer and of the women that you work with. Have you got, because you just mentioned the words core group, have you got like an advisory group that you specifically go out to get their feedback? Or when you're seeking feedback on a new product or an idea that you have, how do you actually go about testing the waters to see if that is, is that a direct conversation? Is it just looking at sales of a ebook, for example? How do you actually test the waters when you've got a new idea or a new product that you want to take to market?
Yeah, I test it in a number of ways, because I have an online running club called the Clubhouse, and that is where the core of my followers are. But I don't only consult them, because in many ways some of them have been supported by this program for 4 or 5 years. So they're not at the start of their journey anymore. So I have to be really mindful that even though you say I've got a really clear idea of my market, even within that, there's such diversity. It's why, if you notice in my branding, I have a rainbow, because no woman in my community is the same as the next one. We have women that are doing Tough Mudders and ultra marathons, and we have women that walk. And them getting out and doing a walk once a week is the most that they can do. And we have everything in between, and my online running club caters for women that would not engage in running in any other way. We have, women that have disabilities. We have transgendered women. We have women that suffer with anxiety. We have all kinds of women that say, God, I couldn't think of anything worse than having to go to a real running club. So I think it's just, as you say, it is understanding your target market, but it's never sitting back on your laurels and thinking you know it all. Because, I launched a program a couple of years ago because a lot of my women were saying, oh, I wish you did something like this for men because my husband would love it. So I rebranded one of my beginner programs specifically for men. It was the biggest flop I've ever done. And I listened to my women. They were all like, yeah, I'll get my husband. And literally, I think I had about 3 men sign up. So I don't do things for blokes. That's not my market. But, I've made some whopping big, mistakes over the years. And that's how you learn. It's how you get resilient.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love that example that you shared, because I feel like we probably all had that moment at one stage where someone tells you what a fantastic idea this will be, and you go ahead and do it, and then it's not quite on brand, or it's not in the direction of where you should be going.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to listen to your gut instinct as well. Yeah. I remember when we first started doing T-shirts, and I said to the ladies, what colours would you like? And they were all saying, anything but pink. We don't want pink. We don't want pink. And then when I went to the suppliers, there was a beautiful pink. And I thought, well, I know they said they didn't want pink, but I'm going to have pink as part of the brand. Pink sells out over and above every other colour I do. So sometimes I have to ignore what they say, because it's not always what they really, really want.
Yeah, that's a great example. So, Julie, I'm now keen to understand, because we've been talking largely about the running side of the business, but you have now expanded it even further, and you're doing coaching, and you've got some mastermind and some retreats. Talk to us about that, because I'm keen to understand how you go from having what is a very, you've built your brand in a very niche market and you've established your brand and your business, but now you're starting to expand, which I think is really interesting, because that's when things can get a little bit scary because you're moving into uncharted waters. So can you tell us about that transition and what does the business look like now as a whole?
Sure. So I guess there's three aspects of what I do. I do running coaching. So, that's all the stuff that covers the running brand. I do life coaching, which is much more kind of motivational. It's about goal setting. It could apply to any area of a woman's life. And then I do business coaching, which is for female entrepreneurs who want to grow their own tribes, regardless of what industry they're in, actually. But actually, the same principles run across all of them. They're about bringing people together, helping people feel less alone, setting huge, ambitious goals. So in many ways, the skills that I use across each of them are almost identical. And, I've got some real core values that sit across both my personal and my business life that makes doing those quite different things really easy, because I just have to show up as myself, and a lot of it came about from I would do these talks about my fitness stuff, and women would come up to me at the end and they'd say, I'm not overweight and I don't want to run, but I just really want to work with you. Like, can I do something else with you? And then the other thing that would happen in the clubhouse is women would, get coached to do with fitness stuff. And then occasionally they'd post in the group and say, I'm really, really struggling at the moment. And they'd talk about an issue with their husband or an issue at work. And I would find myself giving them advice that was nothing to do with running. And I was like, well, we need a separate space for that. So I developed this program called Living a Bigger Life, which used the same principles of, setting yourself a big goal like a marathon, but it could apply to anything. So sometimes women are like, I want to leave my job, or sometimes I want to leave my husband, or, whatever their big kind of goal is, we break it down much in the way you would while training for a marathon. And we support each other to reach those goals. And, with entrepreneurs, it's exactly the same. We look at what's the vision? What's the big picture? What do you want to achieve? And often I say, is that it? And then I get them to think bigger, because we often play small because we're like, it seems a bit scary to be visible. And we say, I want to run this little business in my geographical area. And then they realize there's not a big enough market because it's too niche, or, they don't really want to stay in that area. So I'm often encouraging entrepreneurs to kind of to think about what a business could look like if they didn't have any limits, and if they did understand the technology, and if the customers were there, and almost do some of that real big picture thinking, because that's what I am ultimately. I'm a bit of a visionary. I'm not great at all of the steps all of the time, but I'm really good at looking at big concepts and kind of, I guess, gimmicks. I had a business advisor that said, Too Fat to Run is just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. People will get bored of it. And I was like, okay. But actually gimmicks, people buy into gimmicks. They buy into a brand. If a brand is funny and it's provocative and it's doing something slightly different, who cares if it's a gimmick, as long as people buy into it? And I don't know, I've managed to get a lot of PR and a lot of kind of opportunities off the back of being quite unique, and I'll go on these kind of media trips where, all of the other kind of fitness people are at the peak of their kind of fitness careers. And then I look like somebody's, housewife or something that's come along for the trip. And there I am, doing the Paris triathlon, where it's like 99% fit, athletic men. And then there's me, but the reason I get invited to do these things is because I'm offering a completely different viewpoint on these kind of mass participation sports.
Yeah, and I love that point. That was a big thing that drew me to doing this interview with you, is because I just think that so often we can be scared to be different or unique or to niche down, but you are a proof of just how successful that can be. And I wanted to ask you, Julie, because we've spoken a lot today about your community and your tribe and how you've built these women around you. Now, you started off blogging, but where does the majority of your communication happen within the groups that you have? Is it happening on a social media page? Is it happening on a blog? Do you have a private group? Like, where is that talk and that communication happening?
most of my paid clients have Facebook groups. So each of my coaching programs will have a Facebook community. And then I will send either weekly, it tends to be weekly emails. In the Clubhouse, it's a monthly email. But I show up a lot on video. And I don't do the slick, well-lit, beautiful background videos. I literally am in my front room, or I'm walking down the street to the tube station, or I'm in the park. Often I don't have makeup. Sometimes I'm red-faced and sweaty. So the videos they see from me are me. They're just 100% authentically me. And I think that's where women buy into me as an influencer. I'm not one of those slick people that are always getting photographed beautifully. I literally show up as myself, and I'll just jump into the group and say, I've just done this brilliant CrossFit session, and guess what happened? And I'll share a story. So it's very informal, it's very relaxed, it's very kind of supportive. I do conferences, so I do some in-person stuff. I do my retreat. I do a few kind of workshopy things around the UK occasionally. So I do make sure that I'm not just this person behind a computer screen. And women, they love. It sounds big-headed, but they love to meet me, and I love to meet them. It's just really kind of special to be able to go and do a race and say, look, I'm doing this race, let's meet up, or let's go to the pub afterwards. I'm very, very accessible to my clients.
Yeah, I think that says a lot, and it really does open up those communication lines between yourself and your customers. And what I love about that is that so much of what you do is online. You've also obviously got those times that you can meet up with people, but it shows you that if you are authentic, and if you are willing to, I guess, let your guard down a little bit and just be totally open and honest with the people that you're working with in that online environment, as you're saying, I mean, it really does give you the connection point. It gives you that, it helps you build that relationship, which then of course contributes to your business. So Julie, I have loved hearing about your story, and I'm so grateful that you have been able to come onto the show and talk to us about the journey that you've gone through and the challenges that you've faced and the way that you have actually built and expanded the business. And I'm hoping that for our Fit Inspiration today, because I think a lot of people will be inspired by what you've done, can you share with us 3 actions that you could suggest that people do if, let's say, they've got a dream to start their own business or to make an impact within the fitness industry? What are 3 actions that they should do to get started?
Sure. I think the first one is not waiting for perfection to get started. So don't wait till you've got the perfect logo, the perfect website, the perfect social media following. Literally start where you're at and be honest about where you're at. You don't need to bluff it and talk about being bigger than you are. So just starting where you are and not worrying about perfection. I think the other thing is to just show up as you, as authentically as you can allow yourself to be, because in the long run, people will connect with that. If you appear different online to what people know you to be, people will see that straight off. And I think the other thing is asking for help. Just allow yourself to be vulnerable. And when you don't know something, say, look, this is an area I don't know anything about. And I do that all the time in my blog. I don't have a scientific background. If I need somebody to come in and talk about, preventing injury, I get somebody to come and do that for me. I don't try and bluff my way through. So asking for help is just, it's not a bad thing to ask for help. It absolutely makes you a stronger business owner.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Julie, it has just been such a pleasure speaking to you today and hearing all about your journey. Now, I know that you will have inspired many of the FBP family. So if they want to check out a little bit more about you and about your businesses and websites, where's the best place for them to go?
Sure. So I do have 3 websites. So anything to do with running is www.toofattorun.co.uk. And anything to do with my life coaching is juliecreffield.com. And then the stuff that's about female entrepreneurs and helping people to grow tribes is www.tribebuildernetwork.com.
Excellent. Well, we'll put all of those links in the show notes, make it nice and easy for everyone. Julie, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
I've really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Tribe, if you haven't explored a functional training space for your gym, then now is the time. With Queenex Functional Training by Precourt, there is a unit to fit every space. Plus, education is included to ensure that training is delivered with confidence. You need to jump online and check this out right now. Go to precourt.com/fitness business podcast.
Precourt Quickfire 5.
This week's Precourt Quickfire 5 guest is the owner of Healthier Bookkeeping, Andrea Hovel. Andrea, welcome along. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's start things off with our Precourt Quickfire 5. Tell everyone, why do you do what you do?
So for me, several years ago, I went through a weight loss, and it was a really stressful and frustrating thing for me. But because of all the people I met in the fitness industry, they kind of helped me turn that into something that allowed me to have confidence in everything. So what I really felt compelled to do was to return the favor, because finance tends to be stressful for a lot of people. And I love the idea that I get to wake up every morning and turn that stress into a strength for them.
That is such a beautiful story, beautiful entry into the industry. And what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
I do 3-hour stop times. With the nature of what I do, it kind of, numbers tend to run together. And after about 3 hours, I stop seeing all those really important details that I need to be able to identify. So I set that hard 3-hour stop, and then it kind of gives my brain a chance to kind of reboot.
And do you have any little rituals, do you just stop and have a break, have a coffee, or do you have any little kind of rituals that you do in the break time to refresh yourself?
Just anything to kind of get away from the computer screen. So yeah, I'll go grab a cup of coffee, or I'll even just sometimes go and head to the gym and take a full hour.
Yep. Great. And are there any apps, I'm sure there will be, systems or stay in control of your workload?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of QuickBooks Accountant just because it helps me keep my client workflow in order. Obviously, G Suites is great. My little hidden tool that I use, because documentation is a big deal for me, is called HubDoc. And it's just a great little one place to find everything. It integrates beautifully, and it just lets me, without having to exchange 15 emails back and forth, communicate with my clients in a singular space.
Nice one. So is HubDoc, is it similar to a Dropbox?
Kind of, yeah. But it's built for accounting systems.
Right.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And what's one book, podcast, or blog that you would recommend, and why?
Accounting for the Number Phobic. I actually recommend it to all my clients just because.
Great title.
Yeah, she did a really great job of just kind of giving you the meat and potatoes of a basic overview for business finance and walking you through enough to give you a good base for what to look at and why you're looking at it.
Just say that book title for us one more time.
Accounting for the Number Phobic.
Excellent. We will grab the link and pop that in the show notes, and give us a quick overview of the topic that we're going to be focusing on during your main interview.
We are going to be talking about a financial health checkup, which is something very near and dear to my heart, and it's something very easy that everybody could and should be doing for their own business.
I think that is the key. Everybody could and should be doing. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think there's going to be some great insights for us and things that we can learn and take away and implement into our business. So, Andrea, thank you for joining us today for the Precourt Quickfire 5.
Absolutely.
You're all invited to the FBP Family Meetup on Friday, April the 12th at Fire Lakes 2019. If you're not familiar with our meetup walks, this is an active networking event. We walk and we talk for 45 minutes and return back to the water fountain outside the International Convention Centre in Darling Harbour by 6:50 a.m. The meetup is totally free, and it's a sensational way to start your day. Now, we do need to know attendance numbers, so please jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, go to the top of the page and click on the tab called Meetup. Then register your details for the Fire Lakes Walk. If you need any more information in the meantime, please email me directly at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you so much once again for joining me for this week's show. And a quick reminder that all the resources and links for today's episode can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. I want to say a big thank you to our foundation partner, active management. And as a listener of this show, you have a special opportunity and you have the chance to work with JT from Active Management, and you can actually get one free session when you buy one coaching session. Now that means no matter where you are in the world, technology allows you to work with him. So you need to go to activemgmt.com.au/FBP Family to work with JT to get more people moving and moving more often. Once again, that is one free session when you buy one coaching session, and it is exclusive to you, the FBP family. Simply go to activemgmt.com.au/FBP family. Thank you all so much once again for joining me for the show. Remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.